Barr, the Odessan. I'm curious, Mr. Upchurch, you said you work for a corporation, but you did not say what corporation or where it's located. And Mr. Hubbard, I don't believe you gave your present employment. Obviously, we know that Robin is Secretary of State. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that question would be, tell us a little bit more about your biographical background. Wes, let's start with you.
Okay. Well, the corporation that I work for is Simco Incorporated. We're a subsidiary of Blackwoods Group, and we're a Missouri-based corporation that manufacture air quality control products like ductwork, air ventilation, humidity control devices, for the improvement of indoor air quality. And I do the web design, the web development, and the information systems at that particular company. I've also been doing web design and development for 7 years, and have a background that includes a lot of service in the community. I'm an Eagle Scout. I've been active in multiple local politics, including the Citizens Internet Advisory Group here in Columbia for the City Council, and I regularly volunteer my time to groups leading freedom of speech on the internet or efforts to make technology, more like cross-platform so that communications aren't limited by the hardware, including with the W3C, that's the World Wide Web Consortium, and several other groups on the web.
Rich Hubbard?
Okay. A little bit more about my background. I worked 3 years with the state, as I mentioned. I worked a year with Division of Youth Services. I worked 2 years with the Missouri Department of Corrections. I am currently a restaurant manager, and I am doing that because you cannot work for the state and be involved in partisan activities. So I've been involved as a restaurant manager for the last year. I've been involved in other civic duties, as far as being involved in politics as well, working on initiatives and things of that sort.
Robin, you also get an opportunity to talk more about your bio.
I think y'all know about me. I do still run my family cattle farm, so anybody who wants to volunteer as captain, please.
Okay, next question from the audience.
Jim Salter from the Associated Press. Can you please discuss your feelings about voter identification?
This question starts first with Mitch Hubbard.
Well, I strongly support voter ID. Again, the job of the Secretary of State is to make sure that we have fair elections. Not only make sure that we have fair elections, but make sure that the citizens of Missouri believe we have fair elections, because regardless of whether we have fair elections or not, if you, the voter, don't believe we have fair elections, it's going to decrease voter turnout. So that's very important. Voter ID basically is common sense. The vast majority of Missourians have a driver's license. For those who do not have a driver's license, they can get a non-driving ID. As a part of the motor voter law, those agencies, including the driver bureau, when you get your driver's license, they help you get registered to vote. And if you have disabilities or if you're on public assistance, those organizations in our state also help you get registered to vote. So we can provide money to them to make sure that we reach out to the people who are disabled or who are poor and make sure that they have the resources to get their driver's licenses, or if they can't get a driver's license, to get a state photo ID. We need to reach out to them. We need to make sure that every single Missouri person who's eligible has the right to vote, and we can do that, like I said, by working for those agencies to get out there and provide the resources to get their ID. But we must make sure that there is not fraud happening, and that is the key. So my position is that we do need a voter ID, but we need to make steps to make sure that no Missourian is disenfranchised as well.
Robin Carney.
That's a great question. There's been a lot of conversation in Missouri about what kind of IDs are appropriate. We already have a voter ID law in Missouri. We've had one for a long, long time. It's only common sense. You have to say who you are in order to vote. You can't have fair elections unless you have that. The debate that we've had in Missouri and what's going on around the country is not about voter IDs. It's about a specific kind of state-issued photo ID card. Now in Missouri, in order to get that kind of state-issued photo ID, you have to present a lot of underlying documents. Not everybody has those. We found, in fact, that in Missouri, if you overlay the state voter list with the state drivers and non-drivers license list, there are 240,000 people that are legitimate eligible voters who don't have that state-issued ID card. Now, for all of us in this room who vote, that's no big deal, right? We have our driver's license, we can show it. But my job as Secretary of State isn't to protect the voting rights of 95% of our people. It's to protect the voting rights of all of our people. So to me, it makes no sense to impose a new kind of ID requirement if our folks don't have it. And so we've got to step up and call this what it is, and this is something that will prevent people from voting. You know, there was a World War II veteran that talked to me about this. He'd driven it his whole life, but he doesn't anymore. He's 98 years old, and his son drives him around. He doesn't have a state driver's and non-driver's license. This law would have disenfranchised this World War II veteran. I'm against that, and I'll be against that every day I'm Secretary of State.
Where's that church?
I'm strongly for a voter ID law. You have to make sure that the elections are fair, and you have to make sure that the people voting are who they say they are. I mean, right now as it stands, you can go in with basically a phone bill that you pulled out of someone else's mail and vote for them. And that's not something that should be happening. I don't necessarily agree that it has to be a state-issued ID, but I believe that there does need to be a recognized photo ID, perhaps including college IDs or employment IDs that are recognized in your local area. Because it's also a good idea to, you know, for people that can't afford just a regular identification card, to have the state funding available for it. And I would work with the Congress to make sure that they pass laws to make sure that ID funding is available if a person cannot afford an ID.
Next question from the audience.
T. Southern Nicole Youth in Hamilton. Do you have any innovative ideas for dealing with the increasing difficulty of finding poll workers on election day?
This question goes first to Robin Carney.
Well, funny you should ask, because this is one of my biggest pushes in the office. You know, it takes 20,000 poll workers to run elections in Missouri. And I think that's not even enough. I think we need to increase that number because, you know, the average age of poll workers in our state is 72. God bless them for doing this for all these years, but they need backup and reinforcement. We've introduced new technology. Elections have had scrutiny like never before since the 2000 elections in Florida. And so we need to have extra help in there. So we've put money on the table, an extra $2 million in funding available for local election authorities to increase the number of people there. We've got a website that recruits poll workers. Maybe all have seen. We're running ads in some papers recruiting poll workers because we think it is that important. I think that is where the rubber meets the road on election day. If you have well-trained, well-educated, plenty of poll workers, you won't have problems on election day, and that's what I'm looking for in Missouri.
What's up, Church?
Yes. Well, I believe that the youth needs to get more involved, and I'd love to encourage them to, and including going into schools and to senior classes where they're learning about U.S. government. It's a good way, it'd be good to encourage students to actively get involved. We could allow them maybe a day off of school to work the polls and provide the training in classrooms. And I actually believe this is good to, make them part of the process, the political process, and feel as if they're making a difference. And so that's what I would do. I'd go in and bring it into education and inform people more about, how the election process works. Most people don't have an understanding of it, especially if you take it at the federal level. You get into the electoral college, you get into electorates, and people don't know the difference. They don't know what does all that mean. And I think that needs to be brought more into our U.S. government classes. Thanks.
Well, I strongly agree that we do need more poll workers. I think the way we do that doesn't necessarily have to cost millions of dollars. With the state spending money, we need to be fiscally responsible. We have college students here at MU and at Stevens College. We have college students at Westminster and William Jewell, UMKC, all around the state. CMSU, we have, or UCM now. We have college students, and each of those college students have to take courses in basic civics. And there's no reason that, as part of that graduating requirement, that those college students couldn't work the polls at least in the November election when they're in session. So we can do that. We can work to reach out to high school students, 18-year-olds, get them involved, and reach out to our youth. And these things can be done without increasing the state budget. I mean, we can lower. We can do it basically as a requirement for graduating, and that makes sense. And it makes sense to encourage them to be involved, work with civic groups, to encourage, give scholarships for those who would volunteer to do that. I think we can do that outside without spending a bunch of state, without spending our tax